As a real estate agent and a realtor myself, I always have to constantly watch out for people who talk bad about us. And in this video, I think Kris Khron does exactly that. So let's see what he has to say, someone who's not a real estate agent.
Today we're going to talk about whether you ever need a realtor again, and if you do, how you should leverage and use them the right way so you don't get screwed the wrong way.
I always think you need a real estate agent unless you know the real estate laws, you know your area. If you know everything about real estate, then sure, you probably don't need an agent whether you're licensed or not. But if you're not licensed and you really don't understand how real estate works and you don't understand the laws, if you don't understand how to get a good deal, if you don't have access to the MLS even, you're really putting yourself at a huge disadvantage by not having.
A federal jury found the National Association of Realtors, the NAR, and large residential brokerages liable for $1.8 billion in damages.
I remember first hearing about this and it blew my mind that this was happening because myself as a real estate agent, I pride myself on being honest, being fair, and really trying to give the best customer service possible. So this right here, this made us look so bad.
NAR was forcing home sellers to pay an inflated commission that is then split between the agent and the buyer's agent. This has been going on forever, so this national verdict might actually change everything in the realtor game.
I do not think that this is honestly going to change anything. There's too much money in real estate. There's too much money going on. The only thing that they might do, and it probably won't be a big, massive change, is they might put a cap on how much you can earn. Right now, there really is no cap. There's no one that says you can or cannot charge 10%. There's actually a direct law that says you can't do that.
Argued that commission sharing as a condition for access to the multiple listing service, that wasn't fair. And what it did is it kept commissions artificially high. Like, have you ever paused to reflect on the fact that realtors can earn up to 6% commission on the sale of a house?
So honestly, 6%, I have never been in a situation where I personally have earned 6%. That is outrageous. Maybe there's some areas where that is normal, but usually it's a split. It's a 6% total split. 3% to the buyer's agent and 3% to the selling agent. Not 6% just to buyer and then another 6% just to seller. That does not happen, at least out here.
Here you are, you own a home and you want to sell it, and really all you want to do is get it on the MLS. And the realtor says, hey, if you want me to put that on the MLS, I'm going to charge you a 3 of the 6% commission. And you're thinking, yeah, but all you're doing is listing it so everyone can see it.
That's crazy. So that is not all we do. We don't just list it and that's it. There's so many things, at least for us in our company, what we do before we even agree to sell someone's house. We do a full walkthrough. We make recommendations on what could potentially help sell that home faster. Of course we list it. But if that person wants to have painting or, the floor is redone, we can oversee that. We watch it. We make sure the proper things are being done to get that house ready for listing. If it happens to be a multi-million-dollar house, then we're looking at staging. We're looking at professional photos. Even if the house is only $200,000-$300,000, we're still looking at professional photography, potentially virtual staging. It's not just as simple as getting a listing and listing it. If it was, everyone would be a real estate agent.
Now, if you're the other agent who's finding the buyers and trying to get them to the deal, they're usually the ones that have to do a harder job because they've got a basic...
Okay. See, they are not automatically assumed. That is not just an easier job. No way. Selling a house can be a tricky thing to navigate. If that house starts to sit for a couple of weeks, depending on the market, and there's no activity, then we have to start looking at price reductions. We have to relook at the market, and then we have to do open houses. Open houses take up time. At least 1 to 2 times a week, we're going out to the house, usually on a weekend when most other people are off, and we're staging the house, we're setting it up, we're there, we're asking questions, we're doing everything we can to sell that house. I know me, I'm calling other agents saying, hey, I got this new listing, I'm putting out flyers. So it's not just grabbing the house and listing it, and all of a sudden a buyer's agent is just so much harder. Sometimes buyer's agents have it easy. Sometimes they walk right into an easy situation, and all they have to do is show their clients one house. They love it. Inspections are easy. Everything goes smoothly. It doesn't happen all the time, but it's bad for him to just assume selling agents don't have a hard time.
And so their job's a lot harder, and yet they split things equally. And so you
It's
have
not as hard as
realtors
it
out there
sounds.
like
It's really
that make
not.
not just hundreds of thousands of dollars a year. There are those out there that make millions of dollars a year. And I know
It's
who many
crazy.
of them are because I've done a lot of business with them. In today's market, the jury essentially found that what they'd been paying out, that 6%, was in a number of cases artificially too high, it was inappropriate, and ultimately it was taking advantage of people.
So I really want to dive more into this lawsuit to really see what was happening exactly. I've looked into it a little bit, but I don't think he has all the information as to what was really going on, because it wasn't a lot of agents. It was literally a couple of companies overinflating things to get extra money. Again, he's making agents look and sound bad.
This verdict could definitely change the industry, leading more buyers and sellers to forego hiring an agent. So there's a lot of homeowners who are out there, they're like, wait, why would I list with you and on my $400,000 house pay a $12,000 commission? And that's why you have companies that have emerged like Homey.
So I haven't heard of that company, but I have heard of things like Redfin, Zillow. They kind of sometimes do the same thing. There's something locally that I've heard of, 1% lists or something like that. Now, as a company, you can set a commission rate and say, this is what we normally charge, but it is illegal to try to set a limit on commission, at least for right now, in your state. To do this violates what's called the antitrust laws. So agents and other brokerages cannot work together to limit or to set commission prices.
By the way, I'm not saying don't use realtors. I use them exclusively in every single deal, but I use them different than most people. And at the end of this video, or even right now, if you want to click the link below, I'll give you a guide to how I leverage realtors.
I don't personally like how he's always got something to sell and he seems like a salesman. I'm sure he's got great information sometimes, but he just seems like a salesman. Like he just doesn't seem like he's in touch with making this video. He's just a guy behind the camera, a face. Maybe that's just a little sidebar, but that's just me.
While you should leverage their time, their knowledge, their effort, they should work on your terms and not the other way around. So a lot of people actually don't know how to use realtors. Here are 4 key points on how I do. First of all, I want you to understand that you make your money in real estate when you buy a deal, not when you sell a deal.
That's 100% true. When you buy a house, that either makes or breaks your deal. Usually, if you don't buy it once and buy it right, you have already lost. You might as well just start counting your losses now. It is very difficult to recover from buying a bad house with a bad deal, a bad mortgage, whatever the case is. If you don't buy it right the first time, then you've already lost.
You should be leveraging a realtor to find good deals for you. And I'm going to define what a good deal is. Number 2,
I think that if you're a beginning real estate investor, or if you're someone who's just looking to buy it or sell a house for like residential purposes for your primary, then yeah, that could be true. But if you're an investor and you're seasoned, or you have great outlets like this channel for YouTube advice, you don't necessarily need a real estate agent fully, exclusively for their knowledge. Yes, you need them. You need to leverage them if you have no idea what you're doing, or if you're not familiar with an area. But if you're familiar with an area, you should want to leverage a real estate agent to help make a deal, to negotiate on your behalf, not to fully vet out a property.
because I'm going to tell you, if it's a really good deal, then once it's on the MLS, a lot of realtors are going to see it and it's going to get snagged. I leverage a system where I put a ton of realtors looking for the best deals hour by hour, and when they come on, I snag them really fast from the MLS.
If you're able to leverage the MLS to find great deals, one great outlet for everyone, whether it's primary home or you're trying to look for a home for an investment property, is go to hudhomestore.com or hudhomestore.gov. I'll put that link down in the description, but that's a place where FHA loans have been foreclosed on, and they give the public an opportunity to buy those. And they're always listed on the MLS.
Number 3, I leverage realtors in all of my finding efforts. So I'm not out there hustling good deals. I put them to work to find good deals because the seller is the one that is responsible for paying those.
100% true. The sellers, I have yet to see a buyer paying the commission for the seller and everyone. If that happens in your state, or if you're an agent where that happens, definitely let me know in the comments, because that is very unusual and not usually common.
Most investors are big talkers, but they can't actually fulfill. As in, go get pre-qualified, prove that you have money for a down payment, then they can take you serious.
That is one of my biggest, if not my biggest pet peeve ever, when I'm dealing with a client, the first thing that I'm always asking them, outside of are you working with another agent, I'm always asking them, are you pre-qualified? If so, for how much? Let me see the letter, because I don't want to show you a $500,000 house and you're qualified for 250, 300. We're wasting everyone's time.
I wanted to identify realtors that understood what I wanted and what was valuable for me, which at the time, I told them that I needed to find properties with a 15 to 20% discount. And as you might imagine, a whole bunch of realtors are like, what are you talking about? That's not possible. We only do retail deals, or in other words, market price.
I'll tell you now, it is very tough to find 15 to 20% discounts that are on the MLS. That doesn't happen often. And when they do, like you said, they get snatched up almost immediately.
So I developed a little system. I would go online through the ads and I would look for realtors that were consistently saying things like strong discount, great investment opportunity, bring your tool belt, fixer-upper, high cap rate. That tells me that those realtors, that they specialize in investors.
That's not always the case. I've seen plenty of real estate agents who have talked that talk and they don't know a clue of what they're talking about. They're just, going with the lingo, or they may have had someone else write their realtor remark. So while that's a good usual standard, if someone knows the talk, they're usually able to walk the walk, as they say, but that's not always the case. So don't use that as your only source of vetting out this person if they know, a good deal or not.
Go and find 10 of those realtors. And then I would call all 10 of them up and I would say, my name is Kris Khron. I'm a qualified investor. Here's my pre-qualification letter. If you find any deal with a 20% discount, or if we can negotiate it to a 20% deal, I'll buy it every time as long as it's in this price range, these type of neighborhoods.
That's true. It's tough. I know me, if someone came to me, I would say, absolutely, let's do it. But I'd inform them that it's not going to be just a quick thing. I'll gladly do it, but it's not always a quick thing.
Would always get 1 in 10 that would say, yeah, I can do that for you. And usually they would go right on the MLS, and by the afternoon, they were sending me deals.
That's not a bad system to have, honestly. If you can get in touch with a few agents, things like that, if you're a local investor, that's not a bad way of going about it. Honestly, I wouldn't be mad if a local investor called me for that. Even though I'm an investor myself, I wouldn't be mad at that, because you're trying to put as many feelers out there as much as possible to find the best deal. So that's not a bad solution at all.
Did was this 3,000 square foot house, and I basically locked it down just under $150,000. It was a foreclosure. It was going through the bank process.
Man,
and similar homes were selling at the time for about
$150?
$80 a square foot, and I locked this one down at $50 a square foot. And how I found the deal was simple.
I would like to know where that house was. Oh my God.
Just come on the MLS, and I had just finished that day making phone calls to these 10 realtors, and one of them, named Ken, basically said, sure, I can do that. That afternoon, he sent me 2 deals. This was one of them. I ended up getting this house at a ridiculous discount, and I did a lease option on. The family gave me a down payment. I was cash flowing $600 a month for years, and then later.
That's an interesting option to do. A lease option. I wonder if it was like a lease to purchase or something like that too, because they gave him a down payment and he just said a lease option. So I'm assuming he means a lease to purchase option. For all of you investors out there, there's nothing wrong with being creative, especially if you have a tenant who's been there for a couple years, and maybe you have that house that just has a lot of equity and you really want to pull from it. It doesn't hurt to reach out to that tenant and say, hey, have you thought about buying? Have you thought about investing in yourself instead of continuously to rent? It could be a great option.
Later down the road, I sold it and I made over $130,000. Remember, I locked in a bunch of equity when I bought it. I realized the equity when I sold it years later down the road.
And this is why it is very important to buy right. If he would have bought that house too expensive, or if he wouldn't have been able to cash flow, he would have ended up either breaking even or losing money. And even though he didn't lose money with breaking even, that could have lost time, which is so much more expensive than actual money. So I don't think he even really talked much about realtors being exposed. Honestly, like I said, it was just a couple of really large corporations, large brokerages that were doing this, which doesn't really speak for a majority of the realtors and real estate agents out there. So I don't know. Y'all tell me. It doesn't really sound like he exposed anything or really talked much about it. It sounded like more of a gimmick of a sales pitch to me to show you how he can sell something. So he didn't really give a lot of information about what happened. He didn't give a lot of insight as to what the lawsuit was about. So I don't know, to me, doesn't seem like he really talked about much. But if you're in the market trying to buy your very first investment property, rental property, and you want to know how do these big millionaires really do it, click on this video here.